Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Are we in for a treat today? Hey, listen, you're live streaming here. Today we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It's the next generation of broadcasting. And hey, if you're on some of these feeds, particularly YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the bell, and you can put in chat box questions or comments, and we can share that on screen and make it part of the permanent production. This will be released in the future as a international podcast, The Quiet Warrior Show, as well as a YouTube premiere version of the same. Let me tell you a little bit about who I have in the studio here today, and then we'll bring them on screen. I'm excited to welcome them back. Scott MacDonald has been here. I think this is his third comeback. He's a inducted Quiet Warrior. Today we have Scott MacDonald and Patti Kurtz, Scott's wife, which is exciting. I'll tell you a little bit about Scott. He's got a bachelor's from Indiana University, a master's from University of North Carolina. He's a former CEO, multiple real estate companies. And when I interviewed him before everybody, particular about his book, Saving Investa, he's a turnaround guy. I know a lot about that. That was my career. And he's got a second career, author of 5 books, wow, including the first children's book, My Friend Charlie, which is what we're bringing today. Patti Kurtz, bachelor's from Indiana University in education, master's from UC San Diego in education. Wow. Hey, there might be a little story there, both university. I wonder if they met somewhere around there. And faculty member at California State San Marcos. Now, I'm here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, so if I'm not saying this right, they can correct me. The career in education, that's what caught my attention about Patti. She taught second grade in Oceanside, California, and has served in administration capacities, Oceanside School District, principal of Santa Margarita Elementary School in Oceanside, consultant to charter school in San Diego. And Scott's the author. He's the writer, and Patti is the educator, and she's got the experience on educating children. We're going to learn a lot about her today because what this book is about. I'm also kind of like having some fun here, and it's great to have a school teacher in the room when you got a child like Scott, where you got to keep him keep him in line. I'm only kidding, Scott. That won't be edited out, by the way. Love this guy. All right, let's bring them both on the screen here. Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, Scott and Patti.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Great to be back.
Yeah. And Patti, it's awesome. I mean, we'll get into storytelling here, but you know, as I've followed Scott's work, how did you meet, Scott? Curious.
We met. It depends upon who you ask. So Scott was living in Australia when we found each other, and so we met through the World Wide Web. And then when we actually met in person, we met at a coffee shop. And one of the first things we discovered about each other was that we'd both gone to the same university at the same time.
Wow. See, and what's fun is you see the little body language thing that you can't, when you watch his back, you'll enjoy it. So I asked you the question and your eyes went kind of peeked at Scott, and Scott's kind of like starting to chuckle. That's why we do storytelling. There's stuff there. Thanks for saying that, because automatically I connected to the bios and I thought, hey, this is a couple that met in the university. My wife and I, she part of our careers were career bankers, so we both have, you know, the Toronto Dominion Bank, and it's where we met. Scott, first of all, I'd like to do something and put a PowerPoint on the screen. So if you mind, can I do that for a moment?
Go for it.
All right. So we have a PowerPoint on the screen, and Scott, I want you just to tell us a little bit about each of these books, so we get a sense of what they were. Start with this one.
Yeah, Tom, Saving Investa was the story of a corporate turnaround in Australia. Morgan Stanley, their private equity group, real estate group, bought a company for $6.5 billion back in 2008, just as a worldwide recession was starting. And the company was in trouble immediately. it looked like it would not survive and that it might take down not only the Morgan Stanley funds business, but could have a pretty serious issue with the bank itself. And I was asked to become CEO and chairman and save the company. And so that's the story. It's been used in business classes as a case study of corporate turnarounds.
Yeah, that's great. I remember, and everybody, you can go back to the episode, the Quiet Warrior Show, find this one, listen to it. I think this was the first time too, Scott, I just want to riff on this, that I heard about Scott's real deeper story, which we won't get into, but how you can see up there how an ex-factory worker, but really about his lifeline and some of the big sacrifices. CEOs sometimes take the hard knocks. Well, they're paid a lot, but some of the sacrifices that Scott made with family, with health and other things to do this magnificent work. I'm going to go to the next cover and just briefly tell us about this one.
Yeah, this is kind of the antecedent to the current book. My dog, Sadie, who was a rescue, she and I kind of wrote this book together. Unfortunately, Sadie died of cancer a little over a year ago. And some of the themes and the cartoons and came from this original book. And it's kind of a philosophical book based on how to live your life from a canine perspective.
And again, everybody, the episode on this one is fascinating too. I have all these books, by the way, that Scott has done in my studio here. In fact, one of the ones we're going to talk about in a moment. But I read all of them. I've given Scott 5-star reviews, international reviews on them. And Scott, I just want to tell you, I go back to this book quite a bit because it's fascinating in the work I do as an executive coach and teaching others. I am a CEO, but I use stories, and sometimes I'll use the metaphors and things out of this book to say to people, do you have a dog? You should get one because you can't see your blind spot, but watch your dog and he might teach you something. Let's go to a couple. This one here. This one just came out. I think we just talked about this a while ago.
Yeah, that came out about a year ago, and that represents probably 15 years of research, ancestry research into my ancestors, but then putting them in the context of American history. They were ancestors at almost every historical event. They weren't George Washington. They were the aide to George Washington. And so it's an American history book about early colonial history, but through the eyes of my research, my ancestors.
Yeah, and again, that episode, everyone, you can find it. This book knocked my socks off in a couple ways. I said this to Scott when I read it, and we talked that it's amazing that there's a couple nuggets you learn about yourself and your lifeline. And, now you got myself and Anna. We've been married 26 years coming up. The two of us, I'm from Fiji, my parents, my heritage India, born in England, here in Canada. She's Italian, born in Rome, come here. We are just salivating, but we're going to get the kits to do our DNA. And everybody, I highly recommend get this book, read it. If there's anything that's going to get you excited, it's going to make you want to take that step. Hey, Patti, I just want to ask you something here. So I'm showing all these books and all, and what's it like to be married to someone who's an author? What's it like when you're sitting, I don't know if you've been there for all these books, but alongside him when he's writing and research, or however he does it? I'm curious.
Keeps him busy. Yeah, I've been, and he's asked me, I've done some editing for him too. And
Wonderful.
There's editors in my family. So
yeah,
that's interesting. And it's,
Yeah, I get, and as an educator, somebody that we learned in your bio, you bring that perspective as well.
Yeah, I can diagram anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think everybody, to the authors watching, because we have a diverse audience internationally, by the way, but also authors. We have business leaders, just people. That what I learned writing my first book, Patti, is I lost perspective sometimes, and I had the manuscript, and Anna's not an editor, but she'd been married to me for 26 years. She is in business. She understands. And I gave it to her, and a few times when she was reading it, she gave me insights that I couldn't see. So I think it's beautiful when a couple together have a lifestyle where they can share that. It's not always that way. And watch some of the Hollywood movies about the guys who are authors. They depict the narrative that, they're broke and the wife's about to give up on the marriage and all this. that doesn't fit here. Let's have some fun now and debut the book, the new book. I'm excited about this. So Scott, why don't we have the two of you can just maybe put your hands under and hold it up on screen. I'm going to full screen you. See if we can. Okay, so everyone, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so if you can both just either one of you, Scott, maybe read out the title, Scott.
Yeah, it's My Friend Charlie, and the subtitle is A Book for Young Readers and Dog Lovers.
Patti, I have double vision from a concussion in 18, and Scott knows that. So now I see four. Yeah, I have photophobia, double vision. I fell on my head in a bathtub and did 5 years, still trying to find my way. Let me read something, everybody, off the back of the book here. Charlie is a little dog with big ideas. He lives in San Diego. Lots of dog and people friends. He makes friends easily, is good at finding treats, loves spending time with his owners, Scott and Patti. Patti, can you read the next paragraph out loud? He especially.
Maybe in the back of the book.
Back cover.
He especially likes children. He lives near the New Children's Museum. That's the San Diego New Children's Museum, and regularly stops kids passing by and greets them with hugs and kisses. This book is his advice as interpreted by his owner, Scott, based on observing Charlie. All
right, thank you. We love it, by the way. Authors, when people love authors, they love to hear them talk about their books. So we're going to have Scott talk a lot about that here. And you'll see on the screen, right, Scott? It says author, scottmacdonald.com. What's that? People can go there to get what?
Yeah, that's my website, and it has more information on all the books.
Okay.
It also has links to a number of articles that I've written that have been published. And a little more information about me and my background.
Awesome. So let's get into the book. I mean, this is storytelling. So I don't ask questions. Something comes up, we riff on it. But the one question I had in mind is, why write this book, Scott? So tell us about that.
So Charlie is an absolutely darling.
Is he there today?
Yeah, he's right playing, but we're going to grab him.
Okay. All right. In a little, whenever you're ready. No rush.
Yeah. And he just, you can't take him out for a walk without people stopping and wanting to pet him, and he likes pets. So he's just a doll. We've taken tons of pictures of him. So I'm looking at all these pictures thinking, wow, this would make kind of a cute children's reach out.
Yeah.
And on the Think Like a Dog book, I used a cartoonist, Marty Buscella, who is quite a famous guy. And I reached out to Marty and I said, Marty, I'm toying with the idea of doing a children's book. And I'm thinking of taking some of the cartoons in Think Like a Dog that need to be colored, that need to be more children's. And he said, let me try one. And he did one cartoon, new cartoon. And it looked really cool, all colored up and fun. So then it reached out to a few people in the industry that know more about publishing children's books and said, I'm thinking about this. I've really never done a children's book. And they were pretty enthusiastic. So we took the next step of looking at the photographs, looking at the cartoons. Marty colored them all up. I called a book layout guy that I had used in my prior books in LA and said, thinking about this. He got all excited about it. He got a colorist to do matching colors for facing pages of photographs and Marty's cartoons. So the whole thing just started to come together. And then we Patti looked at it and gave me some ideas on some of the wording that would be more kid friendly. And it just came together. And when I most of the books, I spent years doing research. This was not much research. This was just pulling together graphics and words, and it really came out really well.
However, he's not really telling the whole story. He has done children's books.
Okay.
He has been making books for his grandchildren
Oh.
for years. In fact,
Wow.
if I'm wrong, I think one of the books that you did for your grandchildren was pictures of Charlie, because they had met Charlie, right?
Yeah,
That's
I did a test run on this
Okay.
for one of my grandkids,
That's amazing.
using her in the pictures and Charlie.
Wow.
And so, yeah,
Yeah.
But you did when,
Yeah.
because what he's done in the past was do those books on, I don't know if we're allowed to name
Sure.
companies' names.
Sure.
What is the company?
Oh, no, that's okay.
At any
Yeah.
rate, where
Yeah.
you send it in and you do it online and then it
Oh,
makes
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've done maybe 5 of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
over the
That's-
years.
That's amazing. Okay. So, now my head's going in so many directions. That's how my brain works. So that's the beauty, Patti, of having you on the show, is that Scott's focused. He's so humble. And it reminds me of a story. When I was younger, I wrote a poem. I was actually in high school. It was called A Brave Dime. I won't get into it, Patti, but my teacher gave me a bunch of stars. And it was set in this store. It was a community, small community town. There was a store and there's a cash register and there was a little food store. And all the coins were sleeping in the cash register, and some robber broke in and the coins started shaking and they were scared. And the whole story was about how one brave dime got out, jimmied open the cash drawer, got them all to safety. And so I found an illustrator. Her name's Donna Setterlin. She actually is my co-illustrator, now part of my company. She does Disney Classic. And I said, I really want to publish this. So Scott, what I did was I wrote it. And then I sent it to her, and she created the image of the store. And then she said, you can't write it this way, because I was so verbose and I was using adult words, and I could not dumb it down. So let's talk about that. And before I do that, I'm going to show this picture. Scott, you can hold up and show anything you want today. These are the Marty Busella cartoons. So that's in the back of the book. So it's even extra value, everyone. So Patti, question for you: How important is it to have books for children, especially books like this? Because you're a teacher. I think grade.
We're laughing
Charlie.
because Charlie is
Over here with his.
Hang on, maybe
toy.
can I do this?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Charlie is trying to get our attention to play.
Yeah.
You want to pick him up?
Pick them
Or
up.
can't-
In a minute.
Yeah.
In a minute.
Okay.
But to answer your question, so say your question was how.
Well, how important is it to have books, particularly like this, in general for children, that with these kind of stories, messages, pictures?
Yeah, I've collected a lot of children's books over the years. In fact, when I retired, I sent a collection of 14 Banker's Box of books to a children's school in Africa, because they were
nice.
too big for my garage. They were taking up all my garage. And I left another probably 10 Banker's Boxes of books at my old school that it wasn't when I retired, but when I left the classroom to become a principal. I think children's books are very specific, and the way a child thinks is very specific and is much more complicated than what we realize. Yeah. And I think books like this are particularly important because the intention of this book is to provide conversations between parents and children about big ideas. That's awesome. That's a hard thing to just do as a parent. Those opportunities don't always come up.
Yeah.
Until the accident has happened. You know what
So Scott, back to you. I'm smiling because you can hear. I mean, that's why I wanted in this show. It's so authentic. You can hear Charlie there doing his thing, whatever he's doing. And
the toy.
Yeah, but what happens is don't stop it. I want it there. But what happens, Scott, is when I hear that in the audience, I see it starts evoking these funny thoughts, like what's he doing, right? And I had this really weird thought because I have this dark sense of humor that he doesn't like the book, so he's shredding it on the floor. He doesn't, and soon you're gonna pick him up and he's gonna have it in his mouth and drooling. Oh, I think that's my Stephen King scene coming out. So Scott, back to you. What I really loved about the book, Scott, is the simplicity and the particular messages. So I'd like you to pick one page, and you can hold it up and show us, but read out, the message, the couple words on the left, and then the message on the right, and then just talk about it, just so we can see how beautiful this is. Any message that you think it would be good for the audience. They're all good.
Okay, so there's a lot. But
I'm gonna full screen you. Hold on. Okay, move it over a bit. It's off screen. There you go. Okay.
So I don't know if you can read it, but it
Yeah,
says,
we got it.
make friends. That's the Marty cartoon.
Yeah.
And then there's a Charlie with another Cavalier dog who lives just down the street. And it says, being a member of the pack is better than being alone.
So interpret that now. I'm a child or youth even reading that. Interpret it, and what are you trying to teach me? Just put it in your own words.
Make friends. Go out of your way. Seek friends. Support others and have them support you.
It's as simple as that. And here's the thing. I want to riff and share this about myself. Patti, I slipped into depression very early after my fall. If you had known me back then, I couldn't walk straight. I couldn't talk. I have impaired vision now. But my whole life changed. And one of the things they told me in the mental health therapy was get connected to people. And Scott, when I read through the book, there was probably 4 of those I could overlay with mental health hacks that teach the importance of things like human connection. So there's dogs, and I don't know, I see a lot of owners walking their dogs, and one dog will start trying to do what we saw in the picture, and the other will freak out and jerk it away, and sometimes, but it's such a powerful message. Show me another one. Let's just, this is all, just pick another one.
Speaking of mental health issues.
Hang on. I don't know. Okay, this is one that really Patti rewrote the title for.
Picking it full screen again.
It says, respect your feelings.
Oh, it's off screen. There you go.
Okay. I can't reflect.
It's backwards. Don't worry.
Go this way. Okay. And then I added, when things are stressful, go for a walk. And there's Patti walking Charlie.
So tell us about that. What are you teaching us?
Well, I think a lot of times one of the most important lessons in mental health is to not deny your feelings, to become aware of your feelings, to get in touch with your feelings. And the best way to say that is just to respect your feelings. And even when you're in conversations with other people, even if they don't respect your feelings, it's important that you continue to respect your feelings, because that's the best way to take care of yourself.
Wow. Everybody, I just want to say how honored I am to hear that. It's such a beautiful book, but you know how powerful that is to me and to so many I've met through my own journey recently since 2018. There's a couple things I learned. They put me in a cognitive behavioral therapy program for 12 weeks in a group of people who had all various mental health challenges. Mine was because of the concussion. And they gave us a book. It's about that big, and it's written by psychiatrists and psychologists, and it had 166 skills in it. And one of them was label your emotions. So they actually gave us a list of all the emotions, and they taught us that by labeling emotions first, so I feel sad, or I feel anxious, or I feel tingly, or I feel happy, then you can begin to discuss and process those emotions. And when the brain, the way that I'm about neuroscience, everybody, our brain is a thought machine. So, I see something in the outside world, it triggers a thought, creates an emotion, creates a behavior. But if we bury and don't talk about the emotions, especially loss of my little dog years ago, we got to talk about it. The second thing they talked about is now that we've labeled it, it's what you just taught us in your book, right? You label the emotion, but now do what you're taught in your book. So it's beautiful. I'm so excited. Let's do one more. I'm going to just this time be selfish and pick one. So everybody, I'm just putting my camera screen on here, and thank you, Charlie, for being patient. Let's. This one is really it's so simple, but it's cool. Be active. So take us to that page, and Scott, and we'll. And remember, you're able to put it on the screen again. No, I've got it here too. Page 30. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah. So the cartoon is be active, and you see a dog chasing a car. And then you see Charlie stretched out, sacked out on the floor, having worn himself out, running around. And it says, I think there's also time to be quiet, and but also take time to rest and relax.
Okay. So
the juxtaposition.
So what is two adults and two? So you're teaching children at a young age something that is going to wire their chemistry in their brain to navigate the world later. What message is that particularly?
Well, there's Patti can talk about this, but you need to be active. I mean, there's just so much about kids who are overweight because they're sitting, watching TV or playing their video games.
Yeah.
You need to get out and do stuff and be active. And then clearly there's a time for rest and a time to kind of reload. And that was the message that was we were trying to convey.
So Patti, can you comment on that? You know, you're in the classroom with I think two grade twos, but that particular message, add anything to that from your perspective with children?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, the activity piece is important, but it's equally important, I think, to rest, because we find with children a lot of times we're so busy just doing, and they actually, and you know, from a learning standpoint, from a cognitive and from an emotional standpoint, they need downtime. We need downtime, because otherwise we really can't be in touch with ourselves.
I love that. I just there's Charlie teaching us again. Everybody, teaching moments. I want to talk to you both a bit more about this one page. So just if you don't mind, more sharing so whenever you say something, it evokes something in me that part of my journey when I was recovering from this concussion I had, I was waiting tables at a tap house. Tap houses have a beer, you know, like the old European ones, and they had a Napolitana oven, great pizzas and stuff. Anyway, long story, but for a year I was actually waiting tables, and I would see parents come in, and some of the parents, they had these two young children. I honestly, Patti and Scott, I think they were probably 4 and 5, and this is what it looked like. The parents had a long day. They bring the kids in. I put them at a table of 6, so there's room. They set the kids in the high chair things. Then they put in both of their hands mini iPads, turn it on, video game. And I observed this table for an hour. They did not pay any attention to their kids, and their kids are like glued to that. Now, wind the clock forward. One of the things that you said so well is I study brain science. I'm in neuroscience, and we have the highest brainwave level is the fastest, and our brains aren't meant to go fast all the time. We have to bring it down and calm it. When you go fast all the time, leads to hyperactivity, things like ADHD, which are diagnosed. And the brain uses about 25% of our body's energy. So what happens is you start to burn out. So at a young age, we're teaching our children and devices, even adults, we never take a rest. So the last thing I wanted to mention, just for the audience to know that why I so love this book and connect, is I was watching Caesar, what's his name? Caesar. He's this guy who does this dog. I love that show. And he said something like, he said, watch this. And so he took a dog for a walk, but then the dog flattened, like it was almost like your book picture. The dog flattened itself. And he said, most people will jerk the dog and try to keep it going. He said, what you're doing is you're not teaching the dog that it's okay to rest. Yeah. Beautiful message. And so when we're teaching our children it's not okay to rest, you've taught us the same thing. How are they going to go into life and not drive their teams in business to burn out and drive their families and do the wrong things? What a great message to put in their minds at an early age. Let me ask you to talk about this for a minute. Both Scotty and Pat, you know, what's one of the happiest, joyful moments you've had with Charlie? We just saw him on the screen there. It's so beautiful. Yeah. Either one of you can, or from both of you, what's one of the things that brings the most joy? Something he does, or when you're around him, makes you just feel good or chuckle or laugh, or something crazy he does. I don't know.
Do you want to talk?
There's a lot of things. I'll give you a funny example. So we've had a dog trainer, and one of the things we asked the trainer to help with is Charlie tends to pick up things like socks or clothing items and wants to play keep away. And we're not big fans of this. So the trainer said, no problem. And the trainer goes to Charlie and he has his treats and he says, drop it. And he gives Charlie a treat. And he does this over and over and over. So Charlie drops it, right? So then the trainer leaves. Charlie runs into the closet, pulls out a sock, comes and waits for us to give him a treat to trade the sock. It's a barter. And he's been doing that ever since the trainer left. So when we're not looking, he looks around for something that he's not supposed to have, grabs it, comes and shows it to us, and offers to give it to us if we give him what he wants. It's not exactly the training that we wanted, but it's kind of a funny thing to do.
I now have this vision that he's in the neighborhood doing deals with the other dogs, negotiating.
Absolutely.
Hey, Patti, what about you?
Well, I think one of my favorite things about Charlie is the way that he engages a lot. And so, like last night, we had another couple over here, and then the other couple, and Scott and I and Charlie went someplace for dinner. Yep. And Charlie would take a few steps and he'd look around to see if everybody, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? He really likes people, and he's a very caring dog. The friend that we went to visit had an injury, and Charlie was at that injury and then, trying to soothe him. Yeah. And it's just, he has this very sort of taking care of, aspect to him. And I know a lot of dogs do, and I know this breed does particularly. And he also engages us in play a lot, which is what he's trying to do with that noisy toy right now, or a few minutes ago. Yeah. So it's that whole sort of like, he goes to you, sort of like he lets you know that you're important to him.
Oh, that's sweet. Everybody teaching moments here. And you're empty nesters, obviously. You don't have children in the house. I saw this beautiful picture. Actually, Scott, open the book and show that picture where you've got some family there. I think that's a really cool picture. Everybody, we're talking to Scott MacDonald, who's the author of the new book, My Friend Charlie, and several other books he's done, and Patti Kurtz, who is an educator, and his wife. Yeah, let me full screen it. I think it's worthy of it. So just tell us who's in the picture there.
That's my son, Andrew, and his 3 kids. And they live overseas. Andrew's a diplomat. And they love Charlie, and Charlie loves them and likes hanging out with them. And then the picture above is my daughter-in-law, who's married to my other son, who fell in love with Charlie, and Charlie spent a lot of time hanging out with her. So, family's important, and Charlie is part of the family, and they love him. In fact, my grandkids are coming in a couple of weeks, and I asked them what they want to do. In San Diego, there's all kinds of things to do, and they said, "Oh, we want to play with Charlie." Heck with the zoo, right?
Yeah, it's a great draw. That's awesome. I love seeing that, and it evoked a memory that I think the first book about Charlie, I think there was a cute little story that it was your son's dog, and all of a sudden he kind of showed up and said, "Dad, can you look after him?" And that led you to learning. Just tell me that story quickly, because it was
that was Sadie.
Sadie,
my first dog. Yeah, Ross rescued Sadie, and then called me and said, "Dad, you got to take my dog."
Yeah,
and that led to a relationship, and it led to that first book, or the second book, Think Like a Dog.
Yeah,
with Sadie's involvement. Yeah, no, Charlie was one that Patti and I went out and adopted.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I just realized what we haven't talked about is the breed and a little bit of the information about the dogs in case people are interested in checking out one for themselves. Tell us what you can.
Yeah, it's a King Charles Cavalier. They almost went as extinct. Wow. King Charles I in England rescued them and grew fond of the breed. King Charles I was the only king in England that was actually executed by Oliver Cromwell.
Yeah.
So, and then King Charles II continued it, but the breed was saved, and it was such a friendly breed that it served oftentimes as a lap dog to the princesses and the queens in these cold castles, because it kept them warm and snuggly. So yeah, there's a long history there.
And what about hair? Is it hypoallergenic or just normal dog hair?
It's fairly hypoallergenic, because I'm very allergic. I was allergic to Sadie, and very allergic to dogs in general. And
okay,
he's pretty easy in that regard. And you get a little hair on you, but it's not anything like even like we had with Sadie at all.
Yeah.
So technically, it's not hypoallergenic, but Charlie doesn't. Yeah, functionally, it's
okay.
pretty good.
When we got him, the first thing we did was we went up there and I sat in the middle of the puppies to see if I would react, and didn't react. So I was like, oh, this is good. So yeah.
Did you get to see the mother? How old was the puppy when you went and saw?
Never saw the mother.
No, we did not see the parents. We have pictures, but we adopted Charlie when he was.
We found him at about
10 weeks.
Yeah,
okay.
so he came to us, but we had picked him out several weeks prior.
And he was a rescue. You said he was a rescue?
No, Charlie was not a rescue.
Okay.
Sadie was the rescue.
Oh, gotcha. So I want to ask you a question on that. I'm interested in, just as we move to wrap up in a short bit. Scott, my daughter's 24 years old. I love my daughter. She's on the other side of the country in university. So I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia. And for those Canadians, she's in New Brunswick. And by the way, you got to say a prayer for Nova Scotia. The tragedy of these atmospheric rivers just hit there. But going back to my daughter, she has 2 cats, but she's always encouraging us for the next dog, because we lost baby Shadow, to get a rescue. And I've met a couple people who have had rescues, and sometimes I'll come across them walking and talk to them. There's some of these dogs have been traumatized, and they find that. So do you have to be prepared for that? And especially ask yourself, are you the right owner to take this on? Because some people, they work and they just leave the dogs. And can you just tell me about what your thoughts are, either of you?
Yeah, I'll tell you my thoughts. Rescue dogs need time and attention. They've typically been neglected or abused, and Patty's had rescue dogs too. You don't want to take on that and then leave the dog alone. Interesting, Charlie, the King Charles breed, they don't like to be alone for long periods of time either. They are so human connected.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there are certain dogs that do much better alone. But that's definitely a factor to be aware of.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Patti, I don't know if Scott told you, but when we lost baby Shadow, she used to be under my chair, so it's funny when I'm doing this show. I always think she's there. And when she passed, it was a few years ago, I had to take her to have her put down, which was the hardest thing. I'd never experienced it. And my daughter was away in university, so she wasn't here. And I just remember that moment, and I didn't realize till after she was gone how much I actually was attached to her. And then I started having a little bit of guilt, like, did I treat her as well as I could have? What I found was afterwards, she started everywhere we walked. My wife would hit us hard. We thought we could see her walking or like in peripheral. I don't know if you know this, but there's a section in the brain that is time and space. Like if you go into the kitchen and you know you got to get your blender, you know where it is. You don't even have to look for it. So apparently this part of our brain doesn't catch up when we lose something. And that's why we see this shadowing, no pun intended, of baby Shadow. So I started researching that as part of my passion for neuroscience. But there is one page that I wanted to ask you if you were to write, and this is going to put you on the spot. Don't worry if the answer is not perfect. But if you were to write a page to inspire children about the loss of a pet, I think it would be powerful. It's like there's a lesson in that, I think. And parents try to teach their kids, and they don't have rational brains till 25. So it's the same thing when you lose an aunt or uncle, right? Kids don't always understand what might you just riff. It doesn't have to be, but what comes to mind? What might the lesson be you teach about that?
You want to try that one?
Yeah, I think again, it's a matter of just accepting, and that it's the sadness that comes with that and the loss, and not being impatient with yourself. No one wants to feel sad or feel lost. Yeah. And so we try to walk away from it, get away from it. Yeah. But if you just can just accept it and be as patient as you can, it's going to take a time, and it's going to heal in its own way. And trying to rush it or trying to deny it doesn't work. No, it works, but it doesn't really work. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. I hope at some future that might appear in another book you do. One of the things that we lost baby Shadow, so my daughter was mature, 20s. But one of the things I kind of think about is, we it opens a door. It opens a door for Shadow to move on to her next life, and opens a door for us to find another friend. And it's part of, like you said, Patti. I think it's key. What, like you said, it's starting to come out of me now when I talk more about it. Losing a pet, we want our children to know that it's a part of life, and also to label the event and the emotion. I'm sad. I lost Shadow. I really feel sad. Okay, well, let's talk about it. But did you know if Shadow would want us to, like we brought her into our life to find another baby Shadow? That's what we're here for. So, I believe in God. God's put an opportunity for us, to carry on, and we'll always remember the good things about Shadow. So we sent pictures and stuff. We have funny things, like, for example, yesterday, I texted my daughter, my wife, she's over there, Anna's here, a picture of Shadow, and we put things like caption this. So we have fun. So they put, what a caption is. So they'll reply back, what's going on in the picture. So the picture I sent was baby Shadow, miniature Shih Tzu, and she was just rising in her bed by my feet. And I used to focus my camera on her, my iPhone, and try to catch her when she was dozing. And so what happened was, just as she was dozing, her eyes opened because she must have figured someone was there. And she looks like she's on crack cocaine. So my caption is, I need more drugs. So we would have little fun things like that, right, about the memories. But anyway, I'm getting carried away here. What's the breed again there, Scott?
It's a King Charles Cavalier, or a Cavalier King Charles.
And
technically, yeah.
Readily available?
Available through breeders. You never find one in at least we looked, in a shelter. They're kind of hard to come by.
Okay. So I may have misspelled it, but I'm putting it on the screen there so we have it in the production. And so everybody, when I met, when Scott and I connected a while ago, when I lost my miniature Shih Tzu, I said she was an Emperor's lapdog. She was very loving. In fact, she gets depressed. She wanted people. She loved them. And this was her. And what we found is this breed had many similarities. So you never know. Might be something that I will explore. Let me remove that from the screen there. So we're going to go to wrap up now, and I'll give the last word to first Patti. Anything you want to say to the audience about the power of the book, the message, anything at all?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I really appreciate this book, and we may even consider doing another, is because I think these days the connection, as you mentioned before, between parents and their children is not maybe as tight as with all those independent devices and everything, as would be the most healthy for them. And this gives an opportunity for a parent and child to connect and talk about things, talk about ideas.
Awesome. Hey, Scott, just to put a weird thought in your head, can you imagine if they come up with a cyber dog and then you did a book? You got one of those, you put it with Charlie, and they're teaching each other. But over to you, Scott. Tell us where they can get the book and your last thoughts about the message today. Yeah,
in terms of where you get the book, any bookstore can order it. It's commonly available. It should be available in Canada and in the United States. Amazon carries it, and Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
And
oh, look at that! There's Charlie.
Hey,
Charlie. Hi, Charlie. Charlie. Hey, can you hear me? It's hey, Charlie. Good to see you, Charlie. Charlie, did you know Mama Dada wrote a book about you? And if baby Shadow, my baby Shadow, Charlie, you would have loved Shadow. Thank you for being on the show today, Charlie. You're a superstar.
Yeah, all that racket you might have heard in the background was Charlie playing with a noisy toy.
Yeah. Hey, Charlie, keep it up. Keep it up. I think that's what keeps Scott living and smiling. So available on and offline at your favorite bookstores, authors. And I'm going to do a shout out and a commitment. I'm going to write a review for the book. Everybody, that's how authors' books get known. Nobody knows about them. You write a review, post it on goodreads.com. On Amazon, so we can get the word out about Scott's book. So on that note, I want to say thank you to both of you. Patti Kurtz, thank you for being here to honor the book Scott's just put out. And Scott, thank you again for coming back. We'll we'll keep in touch and do it again.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. It's great to be with you.
All right. Everybody find that true passion like you see from Patti, Scott, and, well, now we know Charlie, and live the life that you deserve and desire. And we'll see you next week on the Quiet Warrior Show, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Okay.
Okay, stand by. I'm just taking us off the air.
Yeah.